So you've sent in your purchase order, you got your acknowledgement, and it says your order is going to ship today. So all you need is that tracking number and you figure you're good to go. But actually, there is more to it than that. You want to be able to follow the order all the way until it delivers. My name is Jill, and this is the PO Framework. And today we're going to discuss how to track an order and receive it in. So let's get started. Now, there are two types of shipments. We have parcel shipments, which are more like UPS and FedEx. And we also have freight shipments when you have a pallet. Let's say your unit is very heavy, or you have several boxes and you put them all on one pallet and you shrink wrap it. And that pallet will then share space on the truck with other orders going in the same direction. So let's first talk about parcel shipments. Let's say your order is due to ship today and let's say it's one box and it's 25 pounds. And first I'll tell you that usually the cutoff between parcel and freight is probably 75 or 80 pounds. The hard cutoff could be up to 150 pounds. But it's, for safety reasons, you don't want your driver lifting a box that's, 120 pounds to deliver it in. It's happened, but it's better to keep the weight of the box, 75 or 80 pounds, which is quite heavy as it is. And also, UPS and FedEx, companies like that use conveyors to transport their boxes. Kind of like at the airport where you see the luggage going on the conveyor belts. It's kind of like what UPS and FedEx do. And if it's a huge, large box and it weighs a lot, it could maybe hit another box. It could fall off or damage the conveyor in some way. And so our warehouse anyway, usually put the cutoff at 80 pounds. But let's say that your box is 25 pounds and it's shipping today. So we have your box here at the vendor in New York. It's 25 pounds. Okay, and it's all set to ship today. Normally what happens is, let's say it's UPS or FedEx, one of them. Here's the hub or their terminal, right? Companies like UPS and FedEx, they'll have several terminals actually throughout the country. And if you're in New York, the closest terminal might be maybe 15, 20 minutes away. Let's just say, for example. They'll send their driver. The driver actually has a route to follow. So the driver has a route to follow, and maybe his last stop is your vendor, your order. And then they pick up the order. Let's say it's 4 p.m., 3 p.m., whatever. And then they have to take it back to the terminal. Once it gets to that terminal, it gets scanned in. And at that point, you might be able to track the order. Now, the tracking number itself sometimes is available before the driver picks up. Sometimes you can call or email the vendor the day it's supposed to ship, and they might have the tracking number. Not always, but they might. But let's say in this case, they're not able to give it to you till the day after. But what happens is the order gets sent back to the main terminal, and from this main terminal here, it gets sent to Los Angeles, because that's where it's going. And it could make some stops along the way, just depends. And once you have that tracking number, though, you can track its progress at each stop. And it will usually tell you, the UPS and FedEx both have very good websites, so you can see approximately what day it'll arrive. And what you need to do, since this is your purchase order, you want to track it, you need to you can reach out to the vendor the day it's supposed to ship, and they can say, oh yeah, it shipped, I just don't have tracking yet. Because sometimes the tracking number is not populated in their system yet. Usually you have to go the next day. So let's say it ships on a Thursday, right? Your order ships Thursday. You're going to call, hopefully you can email them if you don't get someone on the phone, but call them Friday morning. Okay? By Friday morning, they should have the tracking number. Or some vendors, some vendors would send out invoices like at midnight, and sometimes we got copied on them, and I could pull a tracking number from an invoice. But other than that, if you don't have that option, you can just call and get the tracking number, especially if you're in a hurry. You can get that tracking number, go to the UPS or FedEx website, punch it in, and it should be able to tell you, especially the day after, when it will arrive in Los Angeles. Now, New York to LA is 5 to 6 business days, right? So you have 5 to 6 business days. If it's picked up on a Thursday, let's say this is Thursday, Friday, Sunday, Monday. If it's picked up here, you don't count this day. you start counting here. So this is 1, you don't count the weekend. This is 2, and then you have Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So probably Thursday of the following week. This is if it went ground, not next day or something. That's when you should expect it. But you can go to the website, it should give you a better date. And usually those dates are pretty good. I didn't have, I mean, I did this for 22 years. I rarely had a package that didn't arrive when the site said it did, unless it was lost or something. So anyway, you go to the website and you track it. And if you have more than one box, usually they'll list what they call a master tracking number. And then they'll list here all the other tracking numbers that go with it. And so you could check each tracking number to make sure that it's on its way. If for some reason, like say you get a tracking number Friday morning and for some reason it doesn't work, you punch it in the site and it doesn't work, contact the vendor, make sure they gave you the right tracking number, make sure you didn't transpose a number. But assuming that you have the correct tracking number and it's not on the website, could be for 2 reasons. One, the site's just not updated. Number 2, the driver never showed up. The tracking number was issued by the vendor, but for some reason the driver didn't show up or didn't get picked up. Oh, and there's a third reason could be too, that the box just didn't get scanned. So, you have the package here, and when it gets to the terminal, maybe it wasn't scanned because they usually scan it right here. Or maybe they did and it just for some reason didn't pick up. There were a few times where my package did leave. It was on its way. Just I couldn't tell by the website. And the vendor could also confirm, oh yeah, the guy was here, he picked it up, or no, he didn't. They can let you know. But most of the time it's pretty smooth. So you follow the order and you can check on the website to see when it will arrive. Now, when it gets to LA, there's usually a terminal in LA, and from there, they're going to deliver the order. In the old days, they used to ask for a signature, at least our drivers did. And then during COVID, of course, they just left the box outside the front door. After that, a lot of the drivers didn't really ask for a signature. If you knew your driver, if the driver was familiar to the route and they knew you, they usually would ask for a signature. And it's important because you want to know how many boxes you're getting. Like in this example, we have one box that's 25 pounds, right? But what if you had 2 boxes and one is 15 pounds? By the time it gets to the destination, what if one box delivers and one doesn't? If you don't sign for it, you might not know. You might not know that it got shipped in 2 packages. Maybe you think there's just 1 package coming. Just depends how the vendor packed it. So I liked when the driver asked me to sign for it, because then I could go on the website a little bit later and I can verify, and it will say if it has 1 or 2 packages. Now, if you're tracking this order from the beginning, you might already know if you're getting 1 box or 2 boxes, which is why I always recommend people using the website, because it's very helpful. And if for some reason the package is damaged, hear something in rattling in it, I'd open it up really quick and find out. And usually if your driver knows you, they'll usually wait a minute for you to open it up. And, you can check it. And if it's, damaged or something, you can refuse it. You don't have to accept it. Because if you accept something, even if you note that it's damaged, it becomes yours. And then there's a different process on how to get that fixed or replaced. But usually when I've had the driver come to our place and they go, hey, here's a couple boxes and one of them doesn't look good. Open it real quick, make sure it's good. And we would open it, and if it was fine, I just sign for it and be done. So it again comes down to your driver. But for the most part, they deliver okay and it's fine. Now, you also have shipments that are by truck. So you have the vendor in New York here, you're in LA, and it's going to go by truck. Okay. So here's your truck. Now, it kind of works the same way. There's a terminal, and what they do is they send their truck to the vendor, to the dock. They put it on the dock, and they take it back to the terminal. And then they're going to put that order, let's say it's 1 pallet. They're going to put that pallet on another truck, that's going to be bound for the West Coast. Your order is supposed to go to LA. The trucking company, though, actually is going to ship from the terminal. It might go to Chicago. Then it might go to Denver. Then it might go to Vegas. And then it gets to LA, because a trucking companies, they have to pack that truck. It would cost them too much money to send a truck and not have it full. And at each location, the order gets to Chicago. It might go to a different truck, go to Denver, and then go to Vegas and so forth, because it's all about trying to help, they're trying to save money on the shipment. Now, when it gets to LA, let's say the closest delivering terminal is, let's say 20 miles from the customer. The order gets there. And when it gets there, let's say it gets to the terminal, they're going to have to take it off the truck and put it on another truck and ship it out. If your order requires a lift gate where the truck has they call it a lift gate, but it's like a metal rectangle, and it drops to the ground, because if your pallet weighs 400 pounds, you can't get it off by yourself. So the driver pushes the pallet to the edge of the truck, puts the pallet on the lift gate, and the lift gate goes down. And then from there, you can use a little pallet jack and wheel it off. Not every truck has a lift gate. So they're going to have to definitely make sure that they put that order on the lift gate. And then what'll happen is the driver the next morning, or maybe in a couple mornings, he's going to go to all the different stops until he gets to your place. You might have an afternoon window. Let's say you're a 2 to 4 p.m. window. That's when he'll arrive. Now, you may or may not know that. You would have to call the terminal when it's closer to the time and see, hey, is my order going to deliver today? Because remember, it's still 5 to 6 business days. So if this is a Thursday, it's probably going to take till the following Thursday for it to deliver. And you would call the terminal maybe on a Tuesday and say, hey, has my order arrived yet? And because the trucks do travel over the weekend, you might not see it on the website. And so you're going to make sure that order's there, and then you can ask them for an estimate. Now, they can't give you an exact time because of traffic. Maybe the first stop that the driver makes, the customer takes a little longer than they planned. But anyway, by the time he gets to your place, they'll say 2 to 4 p.m., 12 to 4 p.m., whatever the window is. And then you can just make sure you have enough people there to receive it. Or you would have set it up prior to do a call for appointment, which is always advisable. It may or may not cost money to do that, just depends on the carrier, but it's just so much better, because if the truck shows up, let's say this is your restaurant, right? Let's say a restaurant. And the truck shows up and he wants to deliver the order. And you're like, sorry, I can't take it. My guys aren't here. The truck driver is going to have to go back to the terminal, and then they're going to have to re-deliver it when you do have people there. So that truck is driving once, twice to go back, and then making another trip 3 times. So that's three times. And then every time it travels, it risks getting damaged. So when you are expecting a delivery on a truck, you want to make sure that you have someone to receive it. A lot of buyers prefer that their orders go to a warehouse, because at their storage warehouse, they usually have a guy there that's an experienced receiving person who knows how to receive big equipment. They know what to look for. They usually have a dock or forklift, and they usually have, they're pretty set delivering hours, maybe up to 4 p.m. Some trucks can deliver up to 5 p.m. It just depends, but you would set that up prior. And because when you deliver an order on a truck to a customer, to like a mom and pop cafe, a lot of times they don't know how to take in a delivery. They're not going to have a dock. They're not going to have a pallet jack or anything like that. So if you're ordering something expensive, maybe something heavy and large, it's sometimes better to have it go to the warehouse. And the customer is going to have to pay for it. Let's say it does go to the warehouse. Let's say the warehouse is here. Let's say here's the buyer's warehouse. If the order goes to the warehouse first, then to the customer's going to have to pay for this right here. But it's you have peace of mind, and it's a lot cheaper than if the order went directly to the customer and there's something wrong with it, because the buyer's warehouse is going to know how to receive the equipment. And if you notice that the order is damaged, let's say the driver takes the pallet off the truck and you see a giant hole in the side of the box, at our warehouse, we would never accept that. We would refuse that. It was our policy to always refuse damaged orders, because if we signed for it, even if we signed for it damaged, we ended up having to take responsibility for it, and we would have to be the one who most of the time had to file the freight claim. You can always work with a vendor and see if they'll help you on that. But at least at our warehouse, that was our policy. And sometimes, if we had like 2 or 3 pallets and only one was damaged, we would ask if we could keep the 2 that were good and send back the bad one. Sometimes they allowed us to do that, sometimes not, but we always asked. Now, you might have a different policy at your company and you need to verify what that is. Maybe you have to call the vendor and the buyer and such, but no matter what your policy is, always remember 2 things: to take pictures and to keep the packaging, because you want to keep the packaging. If there is damage, let's say you don't see it on the outside, but you open the package and there's damage inside, maybe a dent or something. And let's say the carrier can't figure out what's going on by the pictures that you did have, they might send out an agent to examine it, and they're going to need to see the packaging. That'll be part of the freight claim. So you want to make sure you keep that. If you throw it away, it might count against you, and you don't want that. So just remember, take pictures, document everything, keep the packaging, and then you can kind of work with your vendor and the buyer to see what the next steps are. Sometimes they'll go ahead and initiate a replacement. Maybe the damage isn't bad. Maybe they'll offer you a little bit of a discount to keep it, or maybe you can offer your customer a little bit of a discount to keep it. Sometimes we had once a dent that was like in the back of the unit. Nobody saw it. So we ended up giving them a little bit of money off, and it worked out. So there's always a solution if you can work with a vendor and see what would be the best way to go. Now let's talk about the packing slip. When an order arrives, you'll usually see a piece of paper. It's folded in half, and it's usually inside a clear plastic like sheath that's affixed to the outside of a box. And that's what is the packing slip. It will be the item that you ordered or items. It'll have a description, a quantity, where it's shipped from, sometimes a weight, and sometimes a tracking number. And you'll find this whether you're receiving in a parcel shipment like UPS or FedEx, or something on a truck. You'll always see a packing slip. Now, for some reason, it's not there, and that does happen. You can just call the vendor and they can email you a copy. It's not a problem. And your accounts payable is going to need this packing slip to conduct a 3-way match. Now, for the 3-way match, you're going to have 3 documents. You're going to have the invoice, you're going to have the packing slip, and you're going to have the original PO, because your accounting department has to reconcile all 3. And when an order ships, the invoice is usually generated that day and it's emailed. Maybe you guys receive it. The accounting department has an email to receive invoices. It'll be sent over that night or the next day. And what they're going to do is they're going to match the dollar amount to what was ordered. So you have the invoice, which will have the serial number if your unit has a serial number, like an oven, even a coffee machine will have a serial number. A case of plates, a case of bowls isn't going to have a serial number, but that's where you would find it. It's on the invoice. The packing slip will have the item or items. It'll have the quantity. It'll have the ship from billing, and sometimes it'll have the weight, and sometimes tracking, just depends. And then with your PO, you have what was originally ordered. And all 3 have to match. Because if they don't, then the accounting department has to find out what happened, like where the mistake was made. That's why it's so important. It's so essential to make sure your purchase order is correct. Because even if it takes extra time, if you take a little bit of time at the beginning to make sure everything's right, your buyer and vendor info, shipping info, the items you're getting, if that's correct, then the rest of the process is a lot smoother. also for the acknowledgement that you're going to be waiting for, that tracking number, receiving it, the accounts department. It really makes everything much smoother, and it saves everybody time, and it makes you all more efficient, because if there is a mistake, let's say in the price, it's kind of like a fly in the ointment, and everything comes to a standstill, and the accounting department has to investigate and spend time that they probably don't have hunting down a mistake that could have been prevented. And, it'll cause them to delay payment in the invoice, and you don't want that either. So the whole point of this entire account is to help people make sure that their purchase order is correct and account for anything that they might miss, so they can make sure they get that right. And it just makes everything smoother. It protects your investment. It protects your profit. It protects your relationship with the vendor. And importantly, it protects your relationship with the customer. So that concludes this video for now. If you like this video, please make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next one.